Okay, let's start.
I can read. You can read.
Yeah.
We can all read.
Yeah,
Let's get
we can all
started.
read.
All right. So we want to do
Absolutely.
comments, right?
Yeah, let's start with the comments. So let's just begin. To start off, Wilderness said, I want to wake up on Saturday and see Action Point goes flawless in Trials of Osiris #1 in my subscription feed. Going flawless in Trials of Osiris, that's a Destiny 2 thing. That would require us to win 7 of the sweatiest matches without losing.
It would also require us to even play it.
It would require us to play Trials.
Which?
Hey, I just noticed that this light is on.
Blooper. Ba-dip.
I don't even remember turning it on.
I don't either.
Something feels different about the lighting.
Does it feel better or worse this way?
Well,
I'm all right with it. I kind of like the gloominess.
me too. The round table of dim lighting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think one day maybe an upgrade is maybe we don't want to upgrade the lighting. Like we want to keep it dim and just get a wood
quality.
table.
Yeah.
Wood table.
That's literally like Rhett and Lake, bro.
That would be cool.
But it's quality. It looks good.
I know, but if you do like a wooden table and like I want to make it feel more dungeony.
Yes, because there's
theirs is just like a carpet.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Okay. So let's go ahead and get going on the comments. First one was from our Minecraft playthrough number 2. So we'll do, depending on the type of comments, sometimes we'll do them from the podcast. Sometimes we'll do them from other videos of ours. So the first one I want to bring attention to is from Wilderness. He said, I want to wake up on Saturday and see Action Point goes flawless in Trials of Osiris #1 in my subscription feed. So
Not going to happen. One, us making a video on Trials, that's a possibility, maybe.
the idea of Trials.
The idea of Trials, though, makes me want to, like, throw my head into a wall. Like, I love Destiny, but getting overly, like, playing with the overly sweaty people.
Yeah, really
I mean,
sweaty.
just the sweaty people that I've played with what's it called? Survival?
Yeah. It's way sweatier than that.
It's way sweatier
It's
than
even
that.
sweatier.
It is my favorite game mode. I do love elimination, but
It would require, for those that don't know, 7 wins in a row. Yeah, obviously without any losses. There's a lot of cheaters with aimbots in Trials because there's really good, especially there's going to be really bad now because there's adept weapon rewards which with special perks on them for getting flawless and for getting Trials wins. So if there weren't cheaters before, which there were, it's going to get way worse. So yeah, it's unlikely for us to get flawless. We might give it a go. We might have actually what's more likely? A fail compilation.
yeah. It would. Gosh. Okay. Yeah.
Another comment was from Mason M from our first podcast. It's a little bit long, so just to add a point to your guys' arguments, Rocket League, one of my favorite games a few months back, got crates removed for them being addictive. They removed them obviously because they didn't want to affect their game rating. As a very family-friendly game, Rocket League, owned by Epic Games, developed the Battle Pass system as well, much like every other game using cosmetics as a money source. Also in Rocket League, when the beta was released, you were granted alpha items as a part of the beta. Because of the items not re-releasing, an account selling trend started. Fortnite went through many of these trends as well. I'm only halfway through the podcast, but I really like. Oh, okay, so he comments and he likes the.
So that was that was like us talking about microtransactions and the battle pass stuff.
Right.
So, yeah, and we also talked about the like loot crates from like CS:GO and stuff like that. So, honestly, the transition was probably pretty good. I agree with the like comment on them trying to keep in a family friendly way. A battle pass is definitely a better way to go.
I think his point was that it was a little sneaky. Like it's kind of like they're making it seem like a more consumer friendly choice, but it's kind of veiled.
Is it more though? I mean, because in my opinion, like the loot crates, I don't know the system for that, but like when in terms of CS:GO, the loot crates are a little more mischievous because the battle pass, you know what you're getting. The loot crates, you're gambling.
Yeah.
All the time. Every case you're gambling. So maybe it was. Maybe, it was. I don't know what the loot crate system was like. I actually think you could get them for free if I remember correctly.
Maybe we should look into it.
But yeah.
But thank you guys for the comments. We're going to keep this a consistent thing where we look at comments and kind of cherry pick some ones that we thought were most interesting, maybe to bring up again. So continue to keep throwing comments down there in the comment section. So because we read them all and we respond to them all. So let's get going,
dude. Very interesting topics today.
Yeah, I agree.
Topics that will probably hit a little bit into some people, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But start with the first topic. It is just because a game is made to look more realistic, or it's going to have two categories, or is made, which kind of like mesh most of the time, or is made by a like big budget company, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good game. This happens consistently. I mean, we've brought up Assassin's Creed multiple times. Big budget games try to look realistic. The content of the games is just lacking.
Yeah,
very much.
Which Call of Duty can sometimes fall in the same thing. We talked about Call of Duty in the last podcast. It's just it's almost like gaming is trending toward releasing games on a certain time frame, and it's lucrative for the companies because they've got a brand new game every single year. That's gets a big influx of purchases at release, and they've got big studios that can work on Call of Duty is an example where there's I can't remember Treyarch and the other I don't know if they're like subsidiaries, but they kind of work on their each game individually so they can make sure they can churn out these games really quickly. And a lot of times, quality kind of dips as a result of that.
Well, and we talked about this too. We're at a certain point with graphic intensity that like they can only make it so much more realistic. Like we've hit a point where it's like we're at the peak of realism in games. And maybe eventually it'll get even more, but like I don't even know what steps they would take because I've seen trailers for the new Call of Duty and I'm like, dang, that's pretty damn like spot on.
Yeah.
And so, it's a copy paste at this point.
Yeah.
For a lot of their games, it's like, well, we can't really do much. So like, let's just take our textures or graphics, put them over to the game because we have to release another game the next year.
Yeah. And
I think that the realism, the times I've run into it the most is with more casual players. Like realisticness in a game is like prioritized.
Yeah.
Where like you can tell, not to be, general about people, but like you can tell when somebody doesn't really play games all that much if they're just like, oh, that game's cartoony. And it's like, it's just an art style that the game developers chose. Yeah. I'm not saying you can't like it. I'm saying that if you look at every game that isn't realistic,
the only good game is Forza Motorsport.
Yeah, like from that standpoint, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just, but I do think the realism is geared towards more casual gamers, which, at this point, Call of Duty is kind of there. There's not a whole lot of diehard gamers into Call of Duty other than like Warzone right now, because I think because of the Battle Royale trend. But, and I know there are some people who do play Call of Duty, so they're going to get a little offended, but the competitive scene for Call of Duty is lacking so hard. And I know I bring up competitive community a lot, but competitive communities are important for games.
Yeah.
They build a different foundation, a different like aspect of people they can draw in, more audience, a broader audience. Like there's casual people, there's people who will just put hours and hours into the game, and those are usually, especially when you're talking about a first person shooter multiplayer, that's more the focus is the multiplayer. Which I think Call of Duty is. Yeah, it has a story, but who puts like 20 hours into that story that you beat through it a couple hours and you're like, yep, that's the story.
And like it was good, but do I need to?
There's no the lack of replayability. Right. All the replayability and stuff is put into the multiplayer.
Grind and
so those people are going to be geared. The people who put endless time into that are going to want to be geared towards the competitive scene. And if there's a lack of it, why?
Yeah.
Like why do that at that point? And the same for Assassin's Creed. I think Assassin's Creed is kind of a casual game too. It's not a particularly hard game,
right? From
what I've played, it's not like. So I think it's intentionally geared towards casual players.
Yeah. Typical Ubisoft affair.
But what's sad about it is it's supposed to be like a story lenient game, but it's not got a very good story. At least until after Desmond, right? Isn't that his name?
Desmond
Not
was like
Desmond.
Desmond
was
like
the He was the Ezio, but I think Desmond was like his. I might be completely wrong.
They were like the same person, but Desmond was like modern day.
It was like his great grandson, and because of their lineage, he could connect back to his. Something something like that. But like after the Ezio story, they
realized that, hey, we've got like a Call of Duty on our hands, and it probably sounds like we're like hating on Call of Duty. It's not necessarily that you can't have fun with Call of Duty and they're not good games, that they're not trying, because I believe that the developers of those games are trying. They're trying to make decent games, but they have to churn them out so fast. How can you really make a fantastic game? It's like I don't think that the new Call of Duty is just like, it's not like shovelware. It's not like, honestly, what I think the sports games are like, where it's just like, let's as lazy as we could possibly be.
Yeah, no, it's like, not. It's not to that level, but
I think they try. But I think you can see that this game.
It would be interesting to let them.
They're using like every Assassin's Creed game and most Call of Duty games use the same kind of framework. It's like you take the same outline. Mm-hmm. And what Assassin's Creed will say, take the same outline and we put it in Greek mythology. We take the same outline, we throw it with Norse, with Vikings and stuff. Mm-hmm. Take the same outline
did it with the
and
Native
we throw
American.
it in Native American, and we take it out and we put it with pirates, and it's like the same kind of thing, the same kind of story beats and so on. So it's not that necessarily that they don't care about their game.
I wonder if they know that they don't have like, with the Ezio, they stuck with it for like 3 or 4 games.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're trying to find that next person, so they keep going to like different timelines, like the Egyptian or.
They're trying to rekindle the same thing.
Yeah, but it's like they can't quite catch it anymore. It's like I truly don't know what the sales numbers have looked like. Which, granted, Assassin's Creed 2 came out, like 2 console generations ago, so I'm sure it didn't sell quite as well. But the fact that Assassin's Creed 2 and the Ezio trilogy have been remastered says something about it. You ask people, very few people that have played all or most of the games would say, "Oh, I don't like Assassin's Creed 2." It's like all of them are like, "Man, a lot of them say Assassin's Creed 2 or like one of those trilogy games is the best one," or some might say Black Flag or whatever. But most people will at least say that Assassin's Creed 2 is like the top. Within the top few, which is kind of sad considering it's been so long since that game's been out.
Yeah. So again, it's not that I think that they're not trying to make a good game.
It would be interesting to let those people have time.
Right.
Don't you? Like, wouldn't it be interesting to see what they actually churn out if it was like,
because they make like,
they gave them a couple years, like 2 or 3 years, just to actually sit down, have some time.
Because they make
good games don't come out in a year.
Yeah, they make decent, pretty good games you can have a good time with in an extremely short amount of time. Excuse me. So it's not that they're bad. It's just that you can tell that they're less inspired than they could be, and that they needed some more time in the oven, and that they needed to be have enough time to come up with something unique and original, other than just location.
And they're updating the game while also having to, like, I know the company's trade off, but as soon as they're done with one game, they got to start working on the next one that they are releasing a year after. Yeah. So like, they're updating this game. So how much care and like nurture goes to the updating this game, or how much time goes to the story? Like, balancing that would suck. Like, I know some games do that, but like, if you really want this to be your baby, like, to me, if I want to release a game, it needs to be my baby. Like, I need to be passionate about it. I need to like love the project that it is. You just don't get that anymore from Call of Duty, or Assassin's Creed. You just don't feel the passion. And you know what? It may very well be that they just don't have the time to be passionate about it. They're on such a time crunch. I can't imagine
that they do. And it's kind of like, I know we kind of like crap on like these games a lot, but it's kind of impressive, honestly, that they can make games that are put together and are decent in that short amount of time. And again, I'm not making excuses for them.
No, yeah.
I'm going to
fault.
Like I know.
Sounds
but
like
I'm going to fault them for making a game that's not as good.
I was about to say,
Okay, I'm not. Going
I'm putting it out there as my opinion. They put out shitty games. Okay, all the time. They put out crappy games that like just feel kind of half-assed.
Well,
the reason I think Call of Duty, I've mentioned this many times, 2019, the Modern Warfare 2019 was so successful is because it played on older Call of Duties that were successful, which was a good idea. But if you can't come up with an original Call of Duty that is just as successful, you need to change something.
Yeah.
And the reason that I think they deserve so much shit is I think they have the ability to give their teams time to make good games. They have the time, because I know
they have enough money to make it. Yeah.
I know they have. I bet you money. You get like this new guy comes in. He's working on Call of Duty. This is his dream job, and he goes in and he has great ideas, probably wonderful ideas for the game. He can't do it. Game director, he goes, "Hey, let's try this stuff." He's like, "Nope, too time consuming. Can't do it.
Right.
Can't do that.
Yeah.
We can't add anything that would like just stack time on top of each other." Where it's like if you take a game like, and we've brought this game up a lot, but God of War, there was so much like they were on the line. Their heads were on the line. It was a big shoe to fill to try and do that. And I think they far exceeded what people thought, but like they took time. They wanted to get it right. They took all the good ideas they could, time consuming or not. Yep. And I think that if you want to make a successful game, multiplayer, single player, whatever, you need to do that.
Yeah.
You really do.
Yeah. And I think there's another aspect of this as well. And that's the games that did spend enough time in the oven, but their focus is on realism almost to a fault. And an example of that.
Oh, I know what you're going to talk about.
In my opinion, you can kind of take it the opposite direction. And in my mind, Red Dead Redemption 2 is an example of that. Now, again, I'm not going to say Red Dead 2 is bad. That was one of the very first games I ever streamed that people liked watching me screw around with wild animals and stuff and jumping off cliffs and having fun.
There is a certain freedom that's cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
But there's also the...
Yeah.
Annoyingly realistic things.
Yes, it's clunky to move around. You feel like too heavy, and the shooting feels weird, and it's.
I also felt weird about the game. The one thing that I didn't like about the game was like sometimes it felt like it was playing itself, and like you couldn't do anything. Like it would. When you're like with a company of people, like it's driving your horse. Like you're just sitting there and you're a passenger. Even though you're supposed to be kind of directing.
It's wanting you to like get engrossed in the story, but it really does the opposite of
which
that.
Which I'm just going to say like most of the time, because it's the same people, Rockstar, they made GTA.
Yeah.
GTA has such a freedom, even in the campaigns, that like people still love the campaign because even though they had the freedom to just like piss off and do whatever they wanted to do, they still love the story.
Yeah.
So it's not like it takes away from anything. It like with the things they added to it, it almost screwed the game over in a lot of ways in the functionality. Yes, it's a good looking game. Yeah. It's kind of, I do agree, it's clunky. Yeah. Feels really heavy.
Yeah. And another like weird thing is it's obsessed. It's almost like, I'm going to sound like I'm trashing on it, but it's almost like arrogant because I know that sounds weird.
It does sound weird, but I do know what you're talking about.
The game, every single time you like skin an animal or anything that you do has an animation to it. And like animations are cool. There's nothing, I don't have a problem with like slick and realistic looking animations. But if I'm cutting up like the 50th deer that I've cut up, don't waste my time and make me sit there and wait for me to like slice down his belly and then go around and then all this stuff. And then, you know, it's like, it comes to a point that it's like they're whipping it out and they're like, look how big we are. Yeah. And it's like, look how good this looks. And then they try to show it to you like 50 times. And eventually it's kind of like, that's not that
little did people
anymore.
know that they don't really want that. Like if you were to think back to games like Far Cry comes to mind because you skin animals in that game. Yeah. It's literally just your guy sticks his knife in, skin. Yeah. And you know, some people may think, oh, that's not realistic. You can't just like, oh, I got the tiger skin. But they don't understand. They don't want to sit there and go,
Yeah.
Like sit there and there's an inch of skin off. Like I got
I'll tell you, it's almost deceptive to me. Like they boast like our games are massive and you could spend hundreds of hours in it, and then you sort of think about it and you're like, how much of that time that I spent was me like on a horse going like on a road for 15 minutes, like doing nothing? Or like how much of that time was me skinning animals for the 1,000th time? Or how much of that time is just these like meaningless little things that add like tiny little animations, you know, how long it takes for you to like get on your horse, stuff like that. Like it's realistic.
Yeah. It's like taking away from the game though, in the fact that like what you're actually playing is not the meat of the game. You're playing all this unnecessary added on like bullshit that kind of just kind of like stuffs up the game. It's like they were trying to fluff up the game to make it even better when they don't have to do that. Right. That's the saddest part. Is like Red Dead Redemption was successful. Rockstar can make games that are open world and good, and yet they still felt the need to fluff it up, and it kind of ruins it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And like, it just feels like a waste of time sometimes. It's like.
It's not just for the player, but for them, because they had to sit there and add that.
Yeah,
like
it was like, it's not even that I don't think it's impressive, whatever animation it is. Like, it's cool.
Oh, no, yeah, it's cool.
It's cool watching. Like,
it's got a wow factor the first few times.
Right. Like, the first time I killed an alligator, it was like
it
was really, I killed this alligator, which, you know, as bad as I was at that game, that was like an accomplishment. It really wasn't, but you know, or I killed a bear. That's a better accomplishment. Killed a bear, and I was gonna skin the bear and I remember that I got there's a guy in the game that can like take animal skins and like make hats and clothes out of it and stuff. And I got him to make me like a bear hat, and it was like I killed that bear, and I was like, I know I'm gonna make a hat out of this bear. And so I'm like watching myself skin it, and I'm like, that's right, I'm gonna skin you, son. And it's like really cool, but then after that happens enough, it's kind of like, oh, well, I've seen this deer animation
Come on.
50 times, you know, it's like,
just cut the deer.
Yeah, it's like, I don't really care anymore, you know, like there should be an option to like toggle that, like just skip the animation, please, like please. And I haven't played the game in a while. I remember at the time there was a lot of examples of that kind of thing where it's just like everything takes forever. Crafting stuff, you know, you gotta watch them. I don't even remember, you know, actually I don't even remember if there is crafting in that game. I'm not even gonna lie, but everything just takes forever. I know I seem like an idiot, but I'm trying to say this is not something that I'm not the only person that said this. I'm not the only person that said this. It's just frustrating, and on top of that, the shooting is clunky. Honestly, I would probably be more okay with these other things, these little time wasters, if the game itself did not just, if the shooting wasn't just clunky and heavy and weird. Like I feel like I miss shots that I shouldn't miss because there's this weird hybrid of like locking onto people's heads, but not all the time. Sometimes there is, but sometimes there's not. Like, I don't know.
I feel like they know they failed that game too, because I don't know if you saw this, but on Steam maybe a week or two ago, they let out just the online version. Like you can just play the online, and it was like $7. Wow. And I was like, so they're trying so hard. They know that they kind of messed up with the single player enough that they didn't draw in the people who would stay and play multiplayer. I mean, that's my interpretation. When a game like goes on sale or like does something like half seas on it, it's like, oh. Yeah. So you didn't do quite as well as you thought. Yeah. At least, I'm not saying they didn't do well. I'm saying not as well as they thought. How's that?
Yeah, and I didn't hear a lot of good about the online component either.
No, I've heard terrible things about it.
Yeah, at
least
at the time of release. I mean, I have no idea how well if they fixed it over time or whatever. But
the thing about Red Dead Redemption, the one before this one, was like it was cool, but like when Grand Theft Auto 5 came out, the freedom of whatever you want to do, you're flying planes, tanks, all this stuff. There's a lack of that kind of stuff in Red Dead Redemption 2. It's cowboys. There's only so much you can actually do with cowboys. Yeah. And there's only so many weapons you can put in the game with cowboys. Yeah. You can't put cars in. You can't. What, are you going to soup up your horse? Yeah. Like, you can't.
I'm putting me a fancy saddle on there.
Yeah, like, cool.
Yeah.
Whoopee. Whereas you can get a super sports car in GTA 5 that sounds like it'll blow the face off of anybody that you drive by. Yeah. But like, I feel like that also kind of hurt the game. I feel like if they honestly, the online probably shouldn't be a focus at all for that game. In my opinion, I think it's okay to have it. I think it's okay to have it, but like
when you got a campaign that's
I think the campaign should be
dozens of hours long,
yeah.
that should be quality.
Yeah.
Which the game reviewed well at the time. So
who did you listen to?
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody complained about some.
IGN.
Most people said that these issues that we're talking about were prevalent, but just they valued. I mean, I'm not saying the storytelling wasn't good and the characters weren't good, the dialogue wasn't good, the writing wasn't good. I'm not saying that because it probably was, but the other stuff, it just.
The playability affects it a lot.
100%.
I mean, it's a game, for goodness sake.
Yeah, if I want to just read a good story, I'll read a book. If that's the only,
if you want a point and click story game, you play a point and click
play a visual
story
novel
game.
Or
yeah, like something like that. Like if I'm looking for that, then I will. If I'm playing Red Dead Redemption 2, I want it to feel good to shoot,
right,
and have a cool story.
And it does not,
and it doesn't. So
I mean, I know. Some other examples I'm kind of thinking of as we're going is like the shooting where you're getting behind cover. You'll just randomly pop out of cover for no reason and get blown up by whatever just because the game is clunky and you wanted to walk away from a cover and instead it like pops you up and you stand straight up like an idiot. It just it's just clunky and weird and heavy and slow.
I will say that even in GTA, Rockstar has not quite figured out the wall cover mechanics because
it's an old game.
It feels really weird. I know it's been out for so long, but I'm talking in general, the wall cover system. Yes, by now they should have figured it out.
Yeah.
But between those two games, they just don't know what they're doing because I've played before and I want my character to do something and they do the exact opposite thing. They just stand up like you said, and you're just a bunch of people are shooting at you and you're just
yeah.
And then you die and
you're
just
oh pop
my
up
gosh,
on accident
dude,
when you didn't
on.
mean to. I think another good example of games that big AAA games that have clunky combat mechanics is Elder Scrolls and Fallout. We talk about them a lot.
Both,
it seems like, but
from a big company,
which
big money games.
The thing is, and here's a major reason why I've finished at least the story of every Fallout game I've played and every Elder Scrolls game I've played, but I did not finish Red Dead 2. And the difference is this. Because while I do think that all three of these series, that the shooting isn't really good, it's with Fallout and Elder Scrolls, it's at least fun.
It's true.
Because it's not slow.
Fallout shooting does feel weird at times, but it is definitely more fun than Red Dead.
And Skyrim, Elder Scrolls games are fun because you can switch up your play styles. You can play a mage dude, you can play an archer, you can play a sword guy with shield, you can play a big great sword dude, whatever. Fallout is fun because of the variety of weapons, because of VATS, I think is a fun mechanic.
Well, they also add the when you do an RPG game, it's definitely a plus to be able to add your own character and different things to modify. Red Dead, I don't think you don't do that, right?
There are upgrades in Red Dead, but it's
more your character's your character.
Yeah, and it's more the upgrades are more so you're because there's a mechanic where you can go. It's sort of like VATS where you can put X's on people's heads and you do quick shooting. Right. You can extend shorten the cooldown and stuff like that, or you have more stamina to sprint or whatever. But so it's not like perks,
right? But those drawbacks are that much more visible when there's a lack of personal connection,
right?
When I make a character,
there's builds in Fallout,
right.
And Skyrim.
There's more meat to the game of your character and stuff. So any glitches or things like that, though we've talked about this many times, we do love those games. Mm-hmm. I have great respect for Bethesda, but they're bugs.
It's getting to the point where it's not acceptable anymore.
We talk so good about it, but at the same time, it's disappointing to know that somebody can fix things and polish a game and doesn't.
Yeah.
Because, yes, some of the glitches are hilarious at first, but then they get really annoying.
Then whenever a quest bugs out and you lose progress on a quest because an NPC is under the ground and you can't talk to them, or
And there's like a meme running around talking about like Oblivion NPCs and how they just kind of like
Yeah.
ignore you or like are running into their walls
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff, and they're like howdy, and then it's
Yeah.
just little shit like that
Yeah.
kind of.
yeah. So I guess back to what we were saying, just big budget does not always mean good.
Yeah, I mean, there's many examples of where a smaller budget actually does a lot better. Like a bunch of indie companies do so, or indie developers do so well.
Yeah.
Like they just blow it out of the park.
Yeah.
And it's because of where all their passion goes to. And they don't necessarily need a lot of money. Sometimes they struggle at first.
Yeah.
What was that game called? It was on the Switch. It was about the girl.
Oh,
Celeste.
Yeah.
It's an indie game. I'm pretty sure it did really freaking well.
Yes.
And it is
Amazing.
So, and the
Amazing.
graphics in that game, if you care about realism, don't play it. Because it
Yeah.
is like the exact opposite. It's like way back to
Yep.
old school platformers,
but
very pixely, but
the controls are tight. Mm-hmm. It's there's not any RPG elements to it. The game adds mechanics as it goes on, so it's not like it's just the same experience all the way through. But it's extremely polished. It's fast. It's constantly rewarding.
and it's story driven. There is a
Yes.
story to it, and it's a very interesting story.
Yeah.
And not only is there a story, but like the gameplay is fun.
Yes.
Like and responsive and
Yep.
not clunky, and like you feel in control. Where some games like Red Dead Redemption 2, you don't feel as in control because
Yeah.
there's like a delay between what I want to do and what my character ends up doing.
Yeah.
And it takes away a lot from a game.
I think that's a lot of the reason why games like Cuphead, games like Super Meat Boy, games like Celeste are
Binding of Isaac.
are popular, are because when you die, maybe not quite as much with Binding of Isaac because of all their RNG elements, but like a lot of times successful games aren't frustrating. And what I mean, and I mean, there can be games with frustrating elements, like a Dark Souls game, which I'm not big into those. We've talked about that before, but
Neither one of us are.
yeah, but like those can be frustrating because they're just really difficult,
Yeah.
and you can be really close.
Binding
to
of
killing
Isaac would be in that.
yeah, and
class
so
for that.
it's not frustrating in the way that Red Dead is. Red Dead is
No.
frustrating in the way that like I shouldn't have died there. Why did my character take so long to shoot? Why did my character just randomly pop
and
out
Dark
of cover?
Souls is actually a good example of feeling heavy but responsive.
Mm-hmm.
Your character has very slow and heavy movements,
Yeah.
but like it's responsive. Whereas like with Red Dead, it almost feels like your character's in sand, even though I'm moving my
like
controllers.
there's input lag.
Right.
And
That's
so, like,
the difference. Is like I move my controller, my character in Dark Souls moves.
Yeah.
Yes, there are some slower elements like the weapon play and stuff like that is slower. That's totally different to
Yeah.
what we're talking about with Red Dead, where it's
Yeah.
just everything feels just delayed.
And games like Meat Boy and Celeste and whatever the other one that I said was, I think I said one more, but Cuphead.
Cuphead, yeah.
Are good because the controls are tight, and when you die, you know it's your fault. Very rarely, I know Cuphead's the one I've most recently played. As hard as it is, I can't think of more than maybe 2 times that I died out of probably hundreds that I felt like it wasn't my fault.
Mm-hmm.
And so a game like Red Dead, I don't understand why it feels so slow. I don't know if it's on purpose, like if they just kind of think.
If
either
it's
they're
on
just,
purpose,
either they're
I
just
just
terrible.
it just doesn't work.
Either they're just terrible at like programming shooting mechanics and just basic character movement,
Which is not true
or-
because GTA 5 feels fine with the shooting
so I
mechanics.
don't know if they're just like
They were
wanting
trying
it to
something?
feel. I don't know if they're trying to make it seem more realistic, like a real human. Slow reaction time because we're people, and that's not what I want in a video game. If I look at a dude and shoot them, I want it to shoot them right then. Like it's a video game. Like don't make me feel drunk. Like, where everything is like delayed
Yeah.
and things don't line up the way they should. Like it's a video game. Like it's those kind of deaths where something happens that you don't feel like is in your control is just annoying. And I really feel like it's on purpose by them. And it kind of parallels with all the animations and stuff. The fact that they just want it to feel and look realistic constantly, almost to definitely to a fault, and almost like that's one of the most important elements is that you feel like it's realistic. And I don't play video games for realism a lot of the time, because I'll tell you what, it kind of sucks. Like the world kind of sucks sometimes. Like being a human kind of sucks. Like being a human being as stupid as we are, like it kind of sucks. Like I play a video game, I want to feel like if I'm a cowboy in a video game, imagine when you're a kid and you're like dressing up in a cowboy costume, feeling like the greatest like tough dude on the planet. Like if I'm playing a video game as a freaking cowboy, I want to feel like I could just
you just like like an old western, just pull out your handgun,
make me feel like
everybody.
Make me feel awesome. I'm a freaking cowboy, but no, instead I feel like a drunken oaf.
You're like, oh, you don't,
feel like an oaf that just like lumbers through life and just like, I don't know, it doesn't feel right.
Yeah, no, and like with like also the realistic graphics, even a game I'm not necessarily going to call it good, but Fortnite, it's not realistic at all, but it's very successful, and it's kind of like going into like, it doesn't necessarily mean. And I know that it's a more casual thing that I talked about. I feel that I hear it from more casual people who play video games. But I feel like realism is, and the reason we talk about it is because it's held a little too high sometimes. Because I feel like you should just consider it an art style.
Yeah.
Whereas like,
you're saying realism should be an art style?
Yes, realism. Like shouldn't be like top tier.
Yeah.
Just because it's real, that's why the game is top tier.
Yeah.
It should be more like the game itself is top tier, and then it's got realism graphics to it. Like Cuphead is hand drawn, really amazing.
I literally cannot think of a game on this planet that I think has a better art style than Cuphead.
Dude, I have to disagree. Don't Starve has my favorite art style of any game.
They're similar in the way that it's
extremely
unique. It's very unique. It's very like organic.
You learn a lot about us on what games we like. Yeah, our art styles. Two very messed up games.
And indie games.
You're killing people for the devil in one.
Yeah.
And the other one, you're just like these mentally messed up people out in the world.
Like me, my stupid. What's his name?
Wartox.
Yeah, Wartox is like psychopath, basically.
He's basically a devil too.
Pretty much.
I play a tree.
Yeah.
He cuts his own arm off.
Yeah, and I'm just like you kill, I eat souls. Tasty. But I agree with you. I mean, I think realism, it shouldn't just be like, okay, I don't think a game should necessarily get like cred points because it's like the most realistic looking game on the planet.
Right.
You know?
And I don't think it's a bad thing if realism is kind of their art style, but it's not like up to the top tier of realism that it could be. Like if it's just a little realistic, why is that an issue? It's almost like that's an issue. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if you're going for a realistic art style, if you're not up to Red Dead Redemption 2 standards, it's a no-go. I don't like that. I feel like you should be able to pull the graphics back a little bit if you want to. Like, why is that a problem? If that is their like vision for the game, I feel like people, maybe we look in depth in games a little more than the majority of people, but still, like, to me, it's like, I want to see this game as they envisioned it for me, and for like the experience I'm supposed to be playing. I want it to be, what they intended, and to like base my feelings off of what they intended, not, oh, this doesn't look near as good as Red Dead Redemption 2's realism. Oh, okay, they didn't mean it to, so
and I think that, a lot of them, even the indie games I've already mentioned today, have very cartoony or very pixely art styles. And I think the kind of like, 16-bit like pixel thing is, I'm sure that they choose that for a few reasons. Like one, it's probably easier. We're not going to deny that.
I think some people think it's cool too, because it's a
fad kind of thing.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, it's cool.
Retro.
Yeah. I play old style games,
which I like the style.
No, that's great.
I like pixel art.
That's totally fine.
I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm just saying that there's a few reasons why it might be a good option for art, but I think the fact that a lot of indie games that have been very successful are these pixel graphics, it really says something about the fact that I'm not really sure that the gaming community as a whole really cares about like how realistic it looks.
And I want to. We've been shitting on realistic games for a little bit. I do want to say there are good examples of realistic games. Like my game of the week last week was Baldur's Gate. Very realistic. They make the characters super realistic, and it's a great game. It's just that it's not like the forefront. It's like, this is cool because we made it more realistic, but it's not the center point.
If you took a game and you were told, write 3 bullet points for the most important parts of this game, the things that you want someone to know. If you're like, hey, I want you to play this game, and here I'm going to sell it to you. Here's my 3 points. If realistic looking is even one of your like top 3 bullets, there's probably something wrong.
Because
you know
that's
what I mean.
If you have to use it as a selling point, because just think about it with any other game. Like, think about it with the 2 games we mentioned, Cuphead.
Yeah.
Now, Cuphead's a little different because I feel like some people are really drawn, to the drawn animations, but
and it hadn't really been done before, like the 30s animation kind of deal.
And it was different and cool.
Yeah.
But same with Don't Starve, but like, imagine those games trying to sell it with that.
Yeah.
That's another thing why Cuphead was so good. It wasn't trying to sell it with, oh, it's hand drawn. It's like, oh, everyone's like, dude, this game looks really cool. And it's like, what did you do? It's like, oh, we hand drew everything.
Yeah.
That is how it.
You should be able to look at a game and appreciate the way it looks without you telling me that it looks great, you know?
Right.
Which, I could go on a rant about Cuphead.
Oh,
I go on rants with you about Cuphead. I just think it's so. It was impressive. The art style, I felt like so unique and so well done. But I think a lot of the buzz you heard about Cuphead, there was a lot of talk about it being hard. There's a lot of talk about it being fun and how it's only bosses pretty much. There are some running levels, but the bosses that's literally it. You start at the boss and you fight the boss, and then that's it. So there was a lot of talk about like the kind of structure of it, but there's a lot of talk about this like really unique and excellent looking art style. And so like Cuphead didn't have to tell us we're using what is it, the like Betty what's the
Betty Boop?
Yeah, like the Betty Boop art style.
Or like old Mickey Mouse, like classic Mickey Mouse style animation.
Yeah, they didn't have to tell us that was the art style for us to like
see it and value it. Or to like even be a selling point for people to like pick up the game. It wasn't like telling it. It was more like seeing it and then wanting to buy the game because they like the art style. Which, another thing, I'm just going to point this out about Cuphead, I love the soundtrack for it. The music, the score for
like
it
the big band jazz stuff.
Oh, it's so fantastic. And I'm not a huge like music nerd, but like, oh my gosh.
No, I am.
There is such a selling point for that game is that. And they didn't even say that either.
No.
Most games don't, which to me is kind of weird. Like, it is, because
it
a lot of games I feel like are very underappreciated because the soundtrack.
And I'll tell you,
this
is a little bit of an aside, but like the indie game scene is where a lot
and they seem to pay attention to that stuff. Yeah.
Yes. Like I can't
not just that, but like the sound design in general.
Yeah. And I can't think of like one good song from Red Dead 2. One piece. I can't think of one good piece from the last Assassin's Creed game. I can't think
which makes you think there's a more like well-rounded focus when the whole game's not based around realism. Yeah. The whole basing it around realism can almost like just roll up in itself, and it kind of consumes itself with and you're missing out on all of these other things that add to your experience. Like, music is such an immersive thing. Yeah. Like, I know this is kind of random, but like, I was listening to this video and they were talking about Dungeons and Dragons, and he was talking about how important it is to play music in the background. Yeah. Because it immerses you in it. Mm-hmm. It pulls you into the world, and it's the same thing for video games. Cuphead. Dude, it really gets you in the mood for Cuphead when you hear that stuff. Yeah, it's awesome. I've mentioned this in the Hot Wing video. My favorite was Mario Galaxy.
Yeah, great
Dude,
soundtrack.
it's awesome. It
There's,
made me
like-
love that game. And I'm not a huge Mario
it-
fan, but it was just like...
You hear that soundtrack. You could literally take someone that's never seen Super Mario Galaxy, didn't know the title of the game, can listen to that music in a vacuum and say, this feels big. Like we're going on an adventure. We're gonna go find some stuff. You know, like it's a big, and that's like the point of the game. It's like the hugeness, the planets and the galaxies, the going out and the seeing what you're gonna find. It's the music puts you in that mindset, and you can take the music and just show it to somebody and say, like, what do you think about this? And they're like, this is huge. Like, this is a big, you know, we're going
Right.
you know what I mean? Like,
There's just so many examples of games that just kind of like I said, well-rounded with their time and money spent. Another good example, since we're talking about like music in games, what is that called? It's the pirate game that's out right now.
Sea of Thieves?
Sea of Thieves.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the music in that game. I remember when I first played it and I heard the music, I was like,
Yeah.
they put a lot of time. And I watched the
even
documentary of them like going through. They went and found those instruments.
Yeah, hurdy-gurdy and all the...
just to get it into the game. They were like, we think the game director was like, this is important. This has to happen. We're going to find it. And they were talking about how like expensive the instruments were. They like were lended. They didn't buy them, but like I remember the guy who was playing it, the musician was just like, I just feel so honored to like have to play. Yeah, I don't want to break this thing.
Which that's rare, right?
Yeah.
Rare game? Is it a rare game?
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe so.
So like Banjo-Kazooie is like one of my favorite soundtracks of all time.
They
Not
just
soundtrack, score, the game score.
yeah, and they just I call it a soundtrack.
Yeah, it probably is what it's called actually. Actually, yeah, I think
it's both.
When
I
you
think
buy
both.
you buy a soundtrack.
A soundtrack. It is called a soundtrack
But-
because on Steam they sell soundtracks.
And I'll tell you what, the which Rare is kind of a big company. They haven't really made
Yeah.
They made like Kinect games in the Xbox 360 time span, but like
But
back
I
in,
would
like,
say the difference
back in the day, like Conquer and like Banjo.
I just feel like
they
the
were
difference
big.
with them is like big companies now feel like money hungry companies, whereas they were a big company because they made damn good games and deserved to be big.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean they took advantage of it in the way that they just kept releasing games to like soak up as much cash as they could. It was like they just did what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Like
and I felt like that Score 2 soundtrack, whatever.
which one?
Sea of Thieves.
Oh, Sea of Thieves.
Yeah. Sorry. It felt like, so it's one thing to like get instruments from the time period or get instruments from where, you know, the piratey sounding instruments and play them and make songs with it. And then that's your soundtrack. But it's a whole nother thing. Like when you listen to that soundtrack specifically, this is going to sound bad, but it sounds not polished. You know what I'm talking about?
But intentionally.
It sounds like a bunch of freaking pirates
playing
with
it, yeah.
wooden instruments that they're out at sea and they're down in like the whatever it's called underneath the ship and they're drunk on ale or whatever and they're playing their music and it's kind of like, you know, like jaunty and like
and
disheveled
it's awesome.
and like it feels real.
But everything was with intention.
Yeah.
It wasn't like accidental or anything.
If it was super polished, it wouldn't feel like a pirate song, you know.
And Sea of Thieves, not a realistic game.
Not at all.
At all.
No, and not a great game either. Good, but could have been better.
Okay, it's good. Needs more. Needs way
100%.
more.
That's really the
It
truth.
needs more for you to work for.
Yeah.
Aesthetics is not enough.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think we need to talk about that game at some point.
we do. We should play
Because-
it too to like get a feel for it because I know it's changed,
They've
but I'm
added a lot of
pretty
stuff.
sure they haven't added enough for me to say that it's like
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. It's not like No Man's Sky
Right.
got to the point where people were like, you know what, they've gotten to the point where they've lived up to
Right.
what
What
they
they
told
were
us we were
what they
going to
were
have.
giving. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
Our next topic fits really well in this too.
Yeah.
First person shooters, which are usually kind of the more realistic ones.
yeah.
So we wanted to talk about why first person shooters are the most popular game. And do you want to start? You want me to let it go?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I have a few reasons. One of the reasons is I think it's one of the easiest to pick up. It's like easy for your brain. I think something I do want to talk about in the future is learning curves in games.
Yeah.
First-person shooters have such a small learning curve. Once you get over that hump, you can pick up pretty much every first-person shooter.
Yeah.
I don't think you could throw a first-person shooter at me that I don't understand. At least the
Basics on how to
gunplay,
shoot.
at least the gunplay of it,
Yeah.
by just like giving it to me.
Yeah.
I think it has a lot to do with that. I think it has a lot to do with there's a lot of quick gratification for playing those games.
Yeah.
Games can usually be pretty fast.
Yeah.
You know how you do in that game. That's the gratification you get. You can leave.
Yeah.
It's like 10-minute games.
Yeah.
Like that's super easy. Boom, I'm in a game. I'm out of a game. You know, a lot of people are busy and don't want to spend a lot of time in games, which I don't understand. But you know,
People.
but you know, for those people, it's very convenient.
Yeah.
The low learning curve, the time, and I think that I think it's pretty evident by not just video games, but like videos, TV, all this stuff, that there is a shorter attention span, and you have to be able to keep the attention for that little bit. And shooters are easy to do that. Like I said, quick to pick up, easy to put down. Great for a short attention span person who doesn't want to like fully get into something every time they pick up a game.
Right. And that's why they're more often, that's why there's less focus on the campaign experience for shooters now. There's still campaigns in some games that, you know, whatever, but there's more of the focus on the multiplayer, because instead of saying, hey, set aside 10, 15 hours on a story-driven shooter campaign experience, instead, here's this laborious grind to get levels or cosmetics or better guns or whatever the game has as rewards. But here's this grind where it's not a necessarily like one single long-term investment to get your reward. It's like you can play little missions or like little matches here and there and still get progress. So like you said, like the short-term memory thing or short-term short attention span thing. Yes, thank you. The short attention span thing.
And a more instant gratification from like rewards and stuff that are a little easier to get, which I think because of all of these factors, first-person shooters have a disadvantage for more committed gamers. Obviously, there are competitive scenes for games, which adds a little bit to it. But like for a game like Call of Duty, when you start to lose a competitive factor to it, before somebody puts it in the comments, I understand that Warzone is a huge thing right now. It's a trend. It'll go away. And
hopefully soon. Cough, cough.
But like it's a trend, and they can't live on that forever.
Right.
They had the Search and Destroy was like the competitive mode, I'm pretty sure, for pros. But like that's all you have for a committed audience. Yeah. There's no there's no like longevity to playing the game over and over again. There's no replayability once you've gotten so far.
Yeah.
You know how cool it is to say you got 10th prestige to me? Zip, 0. Same. I went and got through and I got the same guns over and over again. Now, if it was 10th prestige and I'm like getting other stuff with each prestige, totally different. Yeah. I would go through each prestige because there's more to get to. Yeah. Whereas like if I'm just unlocking the same stuff, I reset it. I screw myself over back to where I was when I started. I don't see the point.
Right.
I can honestly say with the last few Call of Duties, I've gotten a max level and never prestiged because I don't want to reset.
Which is why I think personally that looter shooters are better.
Oh yeah,
even if they are first person, because there is kind of like, and I know you're big on the Borderlands, and
you're in my realm, dude.
Yeah, and I'm in, I like the Destiny, and so do you, and you like the Borderlands, and so there is the same. There's a grind, and then that's why there is a campaign, but the campaign ends, and then you're at that point you're grinding the same kind of stuff over and over, and you're working towards something in the same way that like a more traditional like COD style first person shooter is, but the reward system is more interesting, more compelling to me.
And there's so much to work towards. Like when it comes to Destiny, there's the exotics that take time.
Yeah.
There's no quick gratification or quick, easy step to get it all the time. You
Right.
have to grind for stuff.
Yeah.
When it comes to, and not even just that, legendary guns. If you want to roll on it, that's good. You have to take time, keep getting the guns, and hopefully get a good roll. Same thing for Borderlands. If you want to get, good parts on your guns, so I don't know if you know very much, but in Borderlands 2 at least, and the pre-sequel, I don't know as much about 1, and 3 is less lenient on the parts, but on Borderlands 2 there are gun parts. There's the stock, and the, why can't I remember what that's called? Whatever, the handle on it, the grip. There it is. And you have certain modifier. You have certain modifiers that happen to the gun depending on which brand grip, stock, and barrel it has on it. So if you want a max damage Torg weapon, you want Torg parts because you get buffs for it being the same brand as the gun, plus Torg is the damage modifier for parts. So you know how hard it is to find that gun? You have to get all Torg parts. I mean, there's, I don't even know how many brands, 5 or 6 brands, and for each part, for 3 different parts. So if you want to get it all for that, you have to grind hard. So
and that's good. That's
no, it is. Because then when
me,
you get it, it's oh my God, dude, you know how cool this is? How rare this is that you get these parts perfectly together?
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, Destiny's the same kind of way.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you're grinding towards the best roll of each gun, one that's tailor made for your play style.
Yeah, like the Falling Guillotine, it's very important to get the God roll on it because it's not near as good if you don't. Yeah. I mean, it's useful, but not near as useful as if you have it, which I thankfully got.
I just don't feel like the reward system is anywhere near as compelling in just your average shooter.
But those looter shooters don't have an appeal to people who have short attention spans. Yeah, I know this because I've played Borderlands 2 too much. I can't even tell you how many times I've played that campaign. It's probably well over 100 times I've played through that game because you can play through it different times to get better loot and stuff like that. There's incentive, but people don't want to do that. And that's why that online shooters exist. There's, there has to be something for those people who can't seem to sit down and want to commit to a game, which I'm fine with. It's just, I feel like you get a not as great of an experience with a game, or at least the game doesn't appeal to a wider audience when you're only appealing to people who have a short attention span.
Yeah.
If Call of Duty were to add things that would, reward people who put time commitment in, there would be more of a opportunity for people like me who love grinding for specific things that I want in a game.
You want to hear something though?
What?
I think that the reward system is intentionally made lackluster. It's with games like that because how else are you going to sell the new Call of Duty next year if people still have things that they want to grind for?
Dude, I didn't even think of that. You're so right, though. It can't be grindy if you're going to keep releasing a new game because then it's dude, but I really wanted this game in this last Call of Duty.
Yeah.
But nobody's playing it. Well, then why did they make it so long to get that gun?
Because then you got a bunch of people that are mad. They're because I may be wrong, but I'm fairly positive that save a couple Call of Duties, when a new one comes out, the old player base basically dies.
Yeah, isn't that so interesting? If you think about Borderlands 2 is an old game. It's a pretty old game. I still love playing it.
Yeah, a lot of people play it.
And Borderlands 1, not as good as Borderlands 2, but I still like playing it.
Yeah.
And even though Borderlands 3 is out and they're releasing new content, it's great, but Borderlands 2, I still love going back and playing it. Yeah. Who says they go back and play Black Ops 2? Or Ghosts.
I would say Black Ops 2 would be one of the most likely to go back to because it's one of the best.
I know. I tried to pick out one that was not bad.
Not super old, but no, yeah.
But and also, it needed to be in the middle. Yeah. Because if I was to pick Modern Warfare or
Yeah, no, I mean, nobody goes back and plays Call of Duty 3.
Unless it's Modern Warfare Remastered. I understand that's out. I'm talking about if you just go back and play Modern Warfare without the remastering on it.
Who still plays Ghosts or Advanced Warfare?
Yeah, like no.
Like, could you even find a match? Could you even find a match?
If you did, could you imagine the hackers in that game?
Dude,
that would be.
What's even the point?
I don't know.
We can come back to that topic, but I did come up that I was thinking about, like, specifically within the shooter genre. Why do you think first-person shooters are so much more widely popular and accepted than like a third-person shooter?
Goes into the Red Dead thing. Not a lot of games have done the third person right, where it doesn't feel clunky or laggy.
Yep.
There's a lot of problem with third person where like the movement of my cursor and my character's movement, which I have to give credit where credit is due. I think Fortnite's done a really good job of third person. They've done a really good job of keeping it consistent where your crosshair is right over your character's shoulder, and when you move, you see your character's shoulders going with it.
But it is harder.
It is harder.
It's harder to make a super
and also,
tight and accurate shooter.
What also is not appealing is it's kind of confusing. If you play like the old Resident Evil games and you're in like those tight corridors and you're trying to like look around, it's impossible. Like, dude, the camera angles make it really hard. There's also competitive advantages to third person, like in what's that game called? I mean, you could say Gears of War. You can see a person a mile away and you're undercover; they can't see you.
Yeah, it's almost like boosting your field of view.
Yeah,
like,
it is, and it. I think that's why there's like too much of at least in a competitive standpoint, there's a distinct advantage to somebody who just waits. And PUBG did it. That's the game I was trying to think of. PUBG, they made it so that competitive tournaments were only first person. And it makes sense. Why would you want somebody who can sit in a doorway, have the door open on them? Yeah. So like an enemy comes around the door and they can see them.
See around the corner,
but they can't. And you have other things that are really hard to manage, which are shoulder peak advantages. Because in third person, they have to pick one shoulder or the other to go over. True. Right shoulder, right? So if somebody's coming around this corner, I have the advantage. I have right shoulder peak advantage. They have to peek with their left shoulder. I'm peeking with my right shoulder. I have a time, and time is important when it comes to competitive games. So like having those advantages, it makes those games just super hard to manage and like balance. But even with a single player, I think there's very few games that are successful that are third person. I mean GTA, but you can go in first person. Is there a third person game you can't go into first person that is like held high?
I don't actually know.
Like I meant single player. I know Fortnite, but like I'm talking single player. Can you go first person Mass Effect?
That's a great question.
Because I know Mass Effect is third person.
Everyone pretty much plays it third. Yeah.
If you can't, kudos to Mass Effect because they have accomplished something. And you could kind of say Dead Space. The thing about Dead Space that is crazy, you know what's crazy about Dead Space to me?
I don't think you can go in first person.
It is not first person, and yet it is scary as shit.
Yeah,
that is super. Well, I don't know if some people know how hard that is, but like if you're not getting stuff in your face,
I'll tell you what I personally think is significant in the scariness of Dead Space. The fact that they've stripped down the HUD basically completely. Where the only visual, like the only indication of your well-being is like a meter on your back about showing your health. It's genius. The subtleties, so
that you don't have comforts of like a HUD or anything like that.
It's almost like having a health bar and a little thing that shows how much ammo you have and like everything that's in a HUD.
Isn't the ammo on the gun? Isn't that how they show that?
Yeah.
So they're making it all like very
there's
integrated so that you don't have a HUD.
About a HUD. I know that sounds weird.
No, I totally understand what you're talking about. When you don't have anything in like the peripheral and it's just the game.
Yeah.
But like really, this is kind of going into this a little bit, but like I've not thought about it too much, but a lot of scary games depend on jump scares. And I think I've said that before, but like you can't do that with just that game. You can't just have jump scares because it's not as scary if it's not in your face.
The thing that...
there has to be like creep to it. Like
the thing that benefits tension with third person is the fact that you're not so closed in. It enhances the like environment and the like the ambiance and stuff. So like the creepiness is like amplified because you can freaking see more of it. You know what I mean?
It's less the like turning your head and a character appears behind you, and more of like just the whole atmosphere is creepy and crawly, and you're just like very.
And I think it's harder to achieve horror in that aspect, and I think like you mentioned the original Resident Evils, where it was pretty much like your camera was locked in one place and you move with like tank controls. Like that was kind of creepy in a weird kind of way because it's unsettling and it's
discomforting,
and it's atypical,
which may be the purpose of that camera angle. Yeah. You know,
and it's sluggish.
And I think that's kind of puts players off. You know, the awkwardness, but like maybe that discomfort was part of the game, which is kind of cool to think about. Like if you think a lot about it, like if they were that intentional, like to make you uncomfortable with the camera angle, and that adds to the game.
I think third person too. I think a lot of the reason that like first person is popular with like RPGs, shooter RPGs, like a looter shooter is a great example. But shooters in general is because it's easier to get sucked into a character if you're in first person. Because a lot of times, in a lot of games, your character doesn't speak. And I know that you do in like Borderlands, but a lot of them, like your character does not have an actual voice.
For the most part, Destiny.
Yeah,
there's only a
few
handful of times that they actually talk.
So in a way, it's like encouraging you to be that character, to place yourself in that character. If a lead character has too much personality and character, it's like you aren't playing the game, you're playing as someone else. And so I actually think with Dead Space that works in its favor, because I'll tell you what, I don't want to be Isaac Clarke.
No. If you've not seen Dead Space, please go watch some videos on it, because it is an ultra effed up place. Yeah, and he has the worst life ever.
Yeah, like it's messed up.
It is awful.
It's one of the most effective horror games, I think, because it's not just like there are some jump scares, but it's not as much.
But it's not like the prevalent thing that scares you. It's like
the main thing is like the unsettling environment, the complete isolation, that you're there by yourself with a bunch of like freaking monsters that are around you, and you are just alone.
And the monsters are very like hinting at like Halo Flood, where they like are infected and they kind of morph, or like The Thing. Like it kind of morphs their body in disgusting ways, and it adds to that. Like it used to be a person. You're like, you're killing these monsters that used to be people. They got infected, and they're just like these monsters.
And aren't they like your crewmates or something? In the first game or something.
In the first game, I believe it is your crew. And then a couple other. I think after that, you like go and find other crews, and they're infected and stuff like that.
But I think third person works with Dead Space, and we were talking about the comparison between third and first person. We've kind of gone off on a rabbit trail, but I think third person works for it, because I don't want to be Isaac Clarke.
No.
The reason it's so effective, I think, isn't because I am playing like I am making myself Isaac. I don't want to do that. I think it's effective because I'm watching this character go through, hell and back. And in a lot of games, I don't think they necessarily like they want you to put yourself in that character's shoes. I think they want that. And so for me to say,
that's why they address you. Some games address you very generally.
Yeah.
Like Destiny, Destiny is like
your name in there.
Like Destiny says,
like Guardian.
Guardian.
Yeah.
You're Guardian.
Yeah.
And in Borderlands, even though you have set characters you're playing, it says Vault Hunter. It doesn't say Salvador or Lilith or whatever, when you're playing. It just says Vault Hunter. So it's like it kind of immerses you more. You're like this. You are the Vault Hunter. You are the Guardian.
And I think maybe for a shooter, a lot of times, you kind of want to put yourself in the character's shoes, because you want to feel like a freaking you want
badass.
I mean, you want to feel awesome. You want to feel like you're tearing stuff up. You want to feel like you're kicking butt. But like, Dead Space. I don't want to feel like that.
no. There's
I'm
a sense
perfectly
of
content.
helplessness in that game.
Yes, it's almost like you're watching someone go through misery, and that's part of the appeal of it. That's part of why it's so effective.
Yeah, I know.
Because of that. So, yeah.
So yeah.
But, yeah.
So just kind of, sum it up. First-person shooters are for people who kind of have a short attention span, and it has a lot to do with like the gaming market and how they want to give games out every year. Yeah. So there's not room for people like for time-consuming games, and unfortunately, for people like me and you, those games are not for us because even though I actually excel in first-person shooters, if we're talking competitively, I'm better at shooters than I am with anything else. But I don't play them too much unless they're like looter shooters or something like that. Call of Duty I played, but like it was a measly amount of hours.
Yeah.
I played it for a little while and I was like, oh, cool, this is like old Call of Duty, and then I'm done. Or if like a friend wants to play, then I'll play it. But like
it's like
at that point,
it's like
a social thing.
It's like they're flashy for a short amount of time. Like, it's like, you know what?
Those are some of the most irritating games, too, because you pay $60, and then it's like...
it's like, dang, that was really cool for, like, 2 hours. And then it's like...
Whereas, like, Borderlands, I pay... Right now, you can get the Handsome Collection, which is 2 and the pre-sequel, which the pre-sequel, obviously, is kind of me. But 2, like, the amount of hours I've played it... And it was $40. I don't know if I said that. Handsome Collection is $40,
and you can. I've played all the time.
Yeah, it's on sale all the time. In that game,
like
you can
cheap.
put so many hours and still enjoy it.
Yeah, I actually don't even think that full price it's $40 anymore.
Is it not?
It's probably cheaper than that.
Maybe
like I bet it's like 30.
Because like that.
I might be wrong, but I bet it's like 30.
And it's crazy. I know it's an older game, but still like the difference is a lot. And it's in like Borderlands 3. I'll compare that. Worth $60 to me. Destiny 2, when it comes out with expansions, worth the money to me because it's adding to my grind, adding to my time commitment. Right. I mean, I put like 200 hours in that game in like a couple weeks. Yeah. 4 weeks probably. Yeah. So like
it's compelling.
It keeps me playing. So yeah.
And they're constantly adding new stuff. Like right now I've got the dawning and stuff, but I mean, yeah.
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 Guys, before we move on to our game of the week, I do want to make sure to just remind everybody to make sure to throw stuff in the comments. Yeah. Ask us questions. Tell us if you're super mad about what we're telling you guys right now, which I have a feeling you guys
there has to be somebody who's not very happy.
Somebody that's mad about everything.
I actually have somebody in mind who I think would not enjoy what we just said. So.
Yeah, we said too much about Call of Duty.
Yeah, we trashed Call of Duty, but it's okay.
Yeah. Well,
I had some honest opinion, man.
Yeah, that's what we're doing this for, to be honest. So yeah, throw stuff in the comments. We'll respond. We always respond to comments, and then in the podcast, we might call out some. So, all right. What was your game of the week?
So my game of the week.
Game of the week.
My
game of the week.
My game of the week. You want to hear my game of the week? It is Outriders. Outriders.
Yeah.
I think it hasn't come out yet. No, it doesn't come out till next year. But it seems like a looter shooter. Okay. And it looks really cool. And the focus seems like with the looting more on weapon parts. You get parts for your weapon to like gradually
upgrade your specific weapon.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it seems really cool. Hopefully it doesn't disappoint me.
Hopefully.
Oh yeah, we'll hope.
Yeah, cool.
We'll hope to.
I haven't even seen anything about it, so I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Mine would probably be for the week. It's called Call of the Sea. It's only been out like a week or 2 or 3 or something.
For some reason that sounds familiar, but I don't know.
Well, part of it is that it's available. Like it just came out and it's available on Xbox Game Pass.
Oh yeah.
So I know a lot of people are playing it on Series X and Series S right now for whatever the cost of Game Pass is. And I don't even know if it's available on Xbox One.
Those 40 or 50 people who actually bought
that could get them. That could get their consoles before they sold out. Yeah, but it's like a puzzle game, but it's set in like a Lovecraftian Cthulhu. Monster kind of
I know
thing.
what you're talking about now. Yeah, it's a cool looking game.
If you've ever played The Witness, it's another puzzle game. They seem very similar to me. Kind of like explorative, like you're wandering around finding puzzles, and there's kind of like an underlying story, but it's very like fish, people, monster, Cthulhu, Lovecraft style. It seems pretty cool.
So that's cool. Yeah.
So.
All right.